highlifeng.com.
Good morning, great Biafrans. Good afternoon, good evening, good night to some of you, depending on where you're listening to us from. You are listening to Voice of the Coast on Biafra Radio. My name is Kimiowei, TARI NEMI. I am your host for this program this hour today. We must proceed. We are live on IPOB UK Media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. We are live on Biafra for Power Media International, on Facebook page, YouTube, and on Twitter. We are live on Biafra Radio app. We are live on Biafra Radio on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. We must continue. We must make progress. And I will advise that to share this gospel, share this message to as much people as you can. Ensure you're not listening alone. Ensure that people within your sphere of contact have the opportunity to also listen to the gospel of liberation, the gospel of freedom for Africans and for Biafrans, for Africans and for mankind. That is what we do here. We preach the truth that liberates. We do not preach lie on this platform. We preach the truth and nothing but the truth. Because only the truth can liberate, only the truth can save you, only the truth can bring you out of destruction, only the truth. And that is what we preach, and that is our logo. Let us pray. Ogonomokire motomeda wuyengi nana we tamara yiba. We worship you, for there is no one else like you. There is none that can do the things that you do. You are God all by yourself. You need no assistance. You need no deputy. You need no executive. You are God. And because of this, we bow to you. We bow to no other. We bow to no flesh. We bow to no man. Irrespective of their power, as you are showing yourself strong in Africa, you are showing yourself strong in this world, that indeed you are the only wise God and there is none beside you. Before you there was none, and after you there cannot be any. Because before, present, and the future is you present. Oh Lord, we praise you. Irrespective of the challenges that we see, we praise you. And we thank you for our leader, Mazi Kanu, for how much you have kept him. And we ask that you continue to keep him healthy, irrespective of the health challenges that he's facing. Make him strong. Let him react to treatment positively. That at the end of the day, let your name alone be praised and no other. Father, we commit the land of Biafra unto your hands. We ask that you do unto Biafra as you please. We know that you are doing a great work in the land of Biafra. We ask that you separate the sheep from the chaff. That at the end of the day, your name alone will be praised. Let man not take your glory, but let your glory be unto you, O Lord. Tomorrow we pray that all those that are championing mischief, lies, creating disorder for the people of Biafra, we ask that they shall never go free. That at the end of this journey, they shall know that indeed there is God in heaven. And you, the God that called our leader, Mazi Kanu, for this solemn task. Lord, we ask that you continue to keep your faithfuls, keep them strong. Let them not shift to the left, not to the right. But let them keep their gaze on the course and continue to move further and stronger in your spirit. All these we pray in the name of Tamara, Ayiba, Chukukika Abiyama, Abasi. Ise, more power. Today we're talking about something I title Restructure Africa. Restructure Africa. The restructuring of Africa. Africa. And somebody might be somewhere asking, how does restructuring of Africa have to do with Biafra? course, Biafra is a portion of Africa, and Biafrans are Africans. So, restructure Africa. For you to understand why Africa needs to be restructured and where Africa needs to be restructured, and in which areas that Africa needs to be restructured, you have to understand where we've been, what we've been to, or what we've been through, where we were, what we've been through, where we are now, and what we should do to restructure Africa. You know, what you see today as Africa, as a continent of Africa, as the mother continent of the world, what you see today was not always this way. The structures that you see, the systems that are practiced, the systems of religion, of worship, most of what we have today are alien to the continent. Most of what we have today were not known by men of this continent just a few years ago. When I say few years ago, you should know that this world is very old, because there are fossils of men that have been here for thousands of years before now. So we know that this world is very old. When I say this world, I mean the world of men. I'm not talking about the world of dinosaurs, which are actually dragons. You know, over time, we were told that dragons never existed. But now we're getting to understand that the things that are being discovered today as dinosaurs, they were actually the dragons that ancient books talked about. Dinosaurs are actually dragons. So those creatures existed on earth before man. But in man's world, of man's generation on earth, 500, 1,000 years is recent. It's a recent time. Okay, but concerning what we are going through now, it can be considered ancient. It can be considered ancient time because of how much Africa has changed over time in this short period. About 400, 500 years ago, before the European colonialism of Africa, I don't want to go a few years backward before the Arab invasion of Africa, because even though the Arabs have their religion in Africa and a little of their influence, the Arabs are not our problem today. The Europeans are our problem today. Their structures are still holding us backwards today. So I'm not here to talk about far into before the invasion of Africa by the Arabs and the planting of their religion. But before the European colonialism of Africa, or before Europe came into full trade, trading with Africans and studying Africa to colonize her and begin to establish religion with the goal to colonize, to steal, to plunder, to cause wars amongst the people, to weaken them so that they can come in and rule. pretending to be the settlers of wars and rule. Before this time, Africans were free in their empires, in their kingdoms, in their nations of tribes, with their own different systems of government. There were many systems of government being run in Africa. In many places, you had monarchy, but there were some places in Africa that didn't have monarchy or had a kind of monarchy. The kind of monarchy I mean is a collection of people that within their own region, okay, like within their own clans, they have kings, but generally they relate as one. So within their own city-states, there were kings. So there are other places that no kings. They had different forms in which they organize themselves, do business, make profits, share profits, and make progress, settle disputes, handle crimes, different systems. And the whole of Africa, there was no single border in the whole of Africa. Not one. No single border. Fact is, within Africa then, the tribes, the empires, the kingdoms, they all knew their boundaries. Even among communities, this community know where this other community's boundary stopped. They can have disputes of boundary, and they can fight a little war, and after a while they will settle. They can fight a little, let me not call it war, because most times, most of these things do not last long. They may fight a little, and they will settle the boundary. At the end of the day, they will say, okay, let this tree be the mark of the boundary, or let this house be the mark of the boundary, or let this stone be the mark of the boundary, and so on and so forth. But those boundaries were not borders. There were no borders. Individuals were free to travel. Individuals were free to trade. Nations were free to trade. Kingdoms were free to trade. Kings were free to trade with themselves and free to trade with other people. There were free movement of people and free trade. And in Africa, there were trade routes within Africa and beyond Africa. There were trade routes with Europe, trade routes with India, trade routes with the Arab world. Because those are the continents that we had land boundary with. But Africans also traveled to the Americas on ships built by Africans. Many people are not aware there were Africans before Christopher Columbus got to the United States. There were Africans in the Americas. Some of these Africans in America there were taken as slaves. Just do not forget that the Red Indians, the Aboriginal Red Indians, were also taken as slaves before they chose to come to Africa. So the same way they took the Aboriginal Red Indians as slaves, in America, there were also Africans that were taken as slaves. Those Africans can be considered Aborigine Africans of the American continent. So Africans traveled to the Americas on water, on sea, settled there, did business, came back, and some settled there and remained there. Others returned home. And you know, one bad thing about colonizers, empire builders, empire expansionists, is that they drag the world backward. If not for some of these greedy peoples and greedy nations over time, greedy kingdoms and greedy empires over time, man's advancement would have gone far beyond what we have today. Because most of what we see as man's advancements today, man have gotten here many thousand years before now. There are records in Egypt that looks like, there are images in Egypt that looked like the electrical bulb had been developed in Egypt. Electricity had been developed in Egypt. Thousands of years back, thousands of years ago. But what destroyed all these things? What destroyed all these ancient advancements, mostly in Africa, are those beyond our continent that chose to expand. One thing of note, I am not saying that within Africa there were no wars. I am not saying that within Africa there were no expansion of empires and greedy kingdoms. They have been there. But there is one thing that you will note. Africans never destroyed civilizations. Africans do not have record of destroying civilizations. Africans do not. There is no record anywhere, I stand to be corrected, that at any time in history, an African power took over a particular land, a particular people, and destroyed their books, destroyed their libraries, and destroyed their advancements. No. Nubia, a brother nation to Egypt. The kings of Nubia ruled over Egypt many times in the history of Egypt. They never destroyed the civilization of Egypt. Instead, Nubia civilized Egypt. Many people are not aware that most of what we call the civilization of Egypt began in Nubia, which is current-day Sudan. Everywhere Africans spread to, Africans sustain civilization and improve on civilization. Africans have never destroyed civilizations. When Europe started dwindling backward, it was Africans that traveled to Europe and re-civilized Europe, taught Europeans mathematics again, even though the Greeks had taught them before, after learning from Africa, from Ethiopia, from Nubia, from Egypt. The Greeks learned, went to Europe, and taught their fellow Europeans who were just people living in caves, when Africans were already building massive cities. So the Greeks came to Africa, learned in Africa, went to Europe, and started teaching the Europeans. Taught them different things. And after the Greek Empire fell, the Roman Empire came up. The Romans are power mongers, power greedy fellows. In fact, it is the ideology of Rome that still runs Europe till today. Other Europeans copied that power, that greed for power from the ancient Romans. So the Roman system then, you can liken the Romans of that time to the Fulani of today in operation, in the sense that the way the Romans operated, they do not care about a civilization, and they know nothing. All they know is war. That is all they know. They can fight, they can kill, they are bloody. So they come to your place. When they come to your place, they destroy your civilization. They kill people and destroy your civilization. They burn down everything that you've developed, everything that you hold there, because they do not know the value. They burn these things down and start ruling you. They force you to their own backwardness, and you must have to continue there. They did that in many places, even in Egypt. But of course, it's not everywhere in Africa that they were able to expand to. The Romans were not able to expand to everywhere in Africa. So some of this knowledge was still reserved. So after Rome fell, Europe returned to dark age, the age of ignorance. It was still Africans, the Moors of Western Africa and North Africa, that went back to Europe and re-educated them. So Africa have only spread civilization in this world. Africa have never destroyed. If you have Africans ruling in other places, all Africans see is how to civilize the place. Africans have, while other men have passion for control of other people and to kill other men, most Africans have the passion to develop. Most Africans have the passion to develop others. That is why Africans naturally admire nations that are developing. But yet, they do not want us to develop. Because naturally speaking, by the time Africans begin to develop again, to develop Africa, just as the rest of the world is developing, they fear that Africans will be at the top again. Because civilization and everything, including all the religions in the world, have roots in African spirituality. Whether it is spiritual advancement, or it is technological advancement, or it is political advancement, most of it can be traced to Africa. So Africa have only spread civilization. Africa have only spread knowledge to the world. Africa have never destroyed. But when others have the opportunity to defeat African nations, kingdoms, or empires. Because while we are thinking of advancement of growth, whether spiritual advancement or technological advancement or whatever advancement, other people are looking out for how to take advantage of our innocence and purity to destroy us. That is what the others do. They look out for taking advantage of the innocence of the African man and the purity of his heart to destroy him. All the religions that have been created after learning or after picking from Africa, they designed it to control and bring it back to try to control the minds of Africans so that they can rule over Africans and control their land and the resources in Africa. It's not our fault that the Creator planted so much natural resources in Africa. If you understand science, you will understand that it is only natural for the oldest continent to have most of the natural resources, because most of these natural resources are formed through time. You know, I'm a geologist, so I can tell you that. Whether it is the solid minerals or it is the hydrocarbon, all these things are formed through time. So it is only natural. When you have so much resources in Africa, it makes you to understand that Africa is the oldest. Even when you have coal, those places where you see you have coal, you have hydrocarbon, most of it is as a result of ancient life. This hydrocarbon is ancient life that has been buried in the ground for donkey years and have mixed up in the formation of rocks over time. So what you have as hydrocarbon is actually is fossil, is ancient life. So it is because Africa is old, very old. That is why you have most of the natural resources within the continent. So it's not our fault. It's not our fault, but the greed of others, they want to have control of our minds and control of our people. So these trade routes have been there. We've been trading with these people until the Europeans, like I have taught before on Radio Biafra, the Europeans, when they began to have need of pepper, so much need of pepper, and they wanted to boycott the Greeks that to an extent had the monopoly of pepper, and they were using it against the rest of Western Europe. So they want to have access to India. It started making the Europeans to explore other trade routes with other parts of the world until they were able to, before they found themselves in the Americas, and at the end of the day, they were able to navigate themselves back to India to get the pepper, and that opened their eyes to other lands and other trade routes, and they started trading with the rest of the world. And that innate greed that they have in them to steal what belongs to others, to impoverish them so that you can be rich, to destroy their cultures, destroy their ways of life, and destroy their destinies, and steal it all, made them to begin to plant the ideology that they are superior creatures, and all of that. Because it is only natural that your teacher, that you have respect for your teacher, and a place where people have always come to teach you, is only natural for you to feel that these people are superior. If not for the fact that in recent times we have been able to uncover all the secrets of the past, to discover that Europeans didn't actually teach us. They didn't actually give us civilization. We actually civilized them. We founded civilization and civilized them. They came here, they learned, they went back, they couldn't continue. We went back to them and taught them. Okay, so knowing that we civilized them, we now understand that they are not superior. Or else, during this period of slavery and oppression, they have been able to implant in the minds of many Africans that being in a white skin makes you superior. That it is because they are in a white skin, that is why they know more than we do. But of course they don't. They don't know more than we do. And now we know that they do not. Man is man, everyone is equal. There is none that is superior. So, but this period of time of trading, they started planting seeds. First of all, they used that period to plant seeds in the minds of the Europeans that they are superior to other people in the world, so that they can convince their armies to invade other people's lands, convincing them that what they are doing is the will of God. Because do not forget, they use religion even to control their own people, which now their people no longer submit themselves to all those religious control. But then religious control was still very powerful in Europe. So they had to use all this time, even when they started the slavery, they had to convince the people that, oh, these people are nothing, they are not a people. So whatever you do to them, God will not be angry with you. So they first of all possessed the minds of their own people to make them believe that lie before they started coming here. When they have seen that they have been able to stabilize that ideology in Europe, then they started trying to colonize other lands and other people's territories. So all those chiefs that used to sell their people, they were no longer free to operate. And those that tried to challenge, they were killed, like King Jaja Vupubu. King Jaja Vupubu was given a choice, either to submit and be taken on exile or fight, and the whole of Vupubu, the whole of his kingdom will be destroyed, including pigeon life and plant life. Everything will be destroyed. That is the way of the Europeans. They destroy. They burn down. When they come after a people, when they defeat, they destroy, they burn down. They destroy whatever used to be there. And even when you allow them to come in peacefully, little by little, they will continue to destroy. And that is why in Africa, our past of this period, where the Europeans and the Americans, which are still Europeans, have had control of our people and the minds of our people, you notice that in Africa, the past is better than the future. After so many years, older people will tell you, oh, in our days, Africa, things get difficult by the day. There is no progress. Things keep getting worse. As the day comes, things get bad and get worse. Things only get bad. And some people think it's normal. No, it's according to design. So, when these people came at the Berlin conference, they now chose, because the Berlin conference was called up because Europeans have started grabbing territories in Africa. So because Europeans were already grabbing territories in Africa, they started clashing. But before they started grabbing territories in Africa, what did they do? There were internal wars, wars upon wars, among brothers, among friends. These people will be thinking that, oh, these people have a problem, they will fight. So Europeans were the ones doing business with everybody, but the Europeans were not fighting themselves, but they were making these people that they are doing business with to fight them. You know, if you have one customer, it's only one customer that comes to buy goods, and there are many people selling, that customer becomes king. There are many people selling similar products. The customer becomes king. So he can set the marketers against themselves. He can make them to fight themselves and kill themselves because he becomes king. That was exactly how the Europeans made Africa to be weak, because you cannot imagine somebody from Europe coming to fight an African state whereby, let me say, for instance, the Oyo, that Britain was coming to fight Oyo at the time when Oyo was still strong, when all the areas, all the Yoruba into Benin, into Togo, were all part of this Oyo Empire before the coming of the Europeans. So as at this time, and with the Oyo friendly relationship with the Benin Empire, and at that time when the Benin Empire was still strong, with all her territories intact and all her friends, now you can imagine if the Oyo were to be invaded by Britain, and the power was beginning to get stronger for the Oyo, definitely, you know, the Benin Empire would have helped. As it happened in the case of Oyo and the Fulani Empire. When the Fulani attacked Oyo, Oyo was almost conquered. Oyo retreated and got some help from the Benin Empire. And they got back their feet and chased the invaders away. But of course, they had already lost Ilorin. So, of which till today they've not gotten back, of course. Now, with this kind of relationship, somebody from faraway Europe, it would have been difficult because the relationships were cordial. But what did they do? They ensured that they made they started doing business to put the people at par against themselves, so that they hate themselves. That hatred still lies in Africa till today. That ancient hatred. There are some tribes that hate some other tribes. Why they hate these tribes, they do not know. Why do they hate this their neighbor? They cannot tell. They say, oh, it's the way they behave. Oh, this thing they do, or that thing they do. No. That hatred have been created by foreigners, by Europeans, even before colonization. even before colonialism, so that the people cannot bond. So that whatever friendship they had, they cannot bond. Do not forget, Western Europe could have been conquered by the Mongolia forces, but because they were together, they are not one country, but they have been cordial relationship. So they stood and they were not conquered. So they knew these kind of things, that if there was friendship among the African states, among the kings and the empires and the tribes, if there was friendship, it would have been difficult for them to penetrate and succeed. So all through that period where they were championing relationship, business relationship, that they were coming to buy things and all of that, all those periods they were using it to make sure that the African relationship was broken. That the African friendship, that the friendship between Africans were broken. That was why colonialism was very easy in Africa. That was why it was very easy. Have you wondered why foreigners from far away Europe will be coming to Africa and be telling them that I want to protect you from your neighbors? Why will you be protecting me from my neighbors? You're a foreigner, you are foreign. You don't even look like us. My neighbor here looks like me. How come you will now love me more than my neighbor? Why do you want to protect me from my neighbor? If the division had not been created, these are the questions that the Africans would have asked the Europeans that came to claim to protect them. Because what caused colonialism was Europeans came up with the idea that, oh, all of you are fighting yourselves, but my business needs to be protected. I don't want my business to delay while you're fighting yourselves. So instead of my business to delay while you're fighting yourselves, I think it is better for me to come and protect you. So I will come and protect you. So they were thinking that they were signing alliance. Alliance. They thought they were signing alliance, military alliance, not knowing that they were signing off their lands. That was how colonialism started. They thought they were signing alliance. They didn't know that the Europeans that came to their land had already had Berlin Conference. They had already decided to take over their lands. They were not there in the Berlin Conference. They were not aware of the Berlin Conference. They didn't know that the Europeans had already chosen to take over their lands before coming to tell them that they want to protect them. Deception. So they came and told them, we will protect you from your neighbor. You can imagine Dahomey, that is just by the side of Oyo. The French will come to Dahomey and tell them that they will protect them from Oyo. So that was how all these kings and empires signed their death warrants and signed up their destinies. That we are still talking about it today. That was how the tribes signed off their death warrant and signed off their destinies without knowing. And that is why whatever business trade you want to go into, whatever thing that you put your signature in, make sure it is in a language that you understand perfectly before you sign it. And make sure if this business, trade, or whatever that you want to go into, or that you will need to sign, most of the time, make sure that you should also have a copy in your own language that you understand. Should be translated to your own language so that you can look at it very, very well and you understand. So By the time you go against it and they want to misbehave, you will be able to quote it very, very well. I'm sure there is a high probability that because Ethiopia that was not colonized, that it did not succeed to colonize, Ethiopia also signed. Ethiopia signed with Italy. But the problem was that the difference was that Ethiopia understood what they were signing. And Ethiopia gave their own definition to what they were signing. So when it broke out in war, when these other people, and because Ethiopia already understood the game, Ethiopia told them for us to sign this agreement, because they were coming to Ethiopia with the mindset that, oh, it is alliance. And alliance is not something that is new in the world. Countries have been going into alliance. It's not new. So do not think that these men were foolish to sign these things. These Europeans were scammers, deceivers, because alliance was not new in the world. So they came with the impression that they wanted to sign an alliance with these nations. So Ethiopia was like, okay, if we want to sign military alliance, there is no problem. You cannot protect me. I will protect myself better. Okay, so you should give me guns, because what they were using to oppress were guns. Just as today, what they are using is nuclear power. Then the guns were nuclear power. It was guns that they were using. So they demanded and said, Emperor Menelik demanded and said, give me guns. Because he knew that what they are coming for is not what they are saying that they are coming for. So at the end of the day, when they changed the game, he understood. Probably, maybe he also made them to write it in the Ethiopian writing. So he understood what he was signing. But most of these other people did not understand what they were signing. And when it changed, they couldn't hold their grounds because they didn't know that it was a trap. So these people came and they divided Africa, they parted Africa, they destroyed Africa, changed everything. They restructured Africa from the original structure of nature. So that is why what we are saying here today, Africa needs to be restructured. We need to restructure Africa back, because what we have today is still the structure, with just an exemption of a few territories. What we have today is the structure of Europe in the African continent. What you have in the African continent is European structured territories. So you say that you're free, but your structure is still according to the way Europe designed you. So how are you free? So if you say that you are free, then you need to restructure Africa, and you don't need to begin to protect what was built by people that hate you, by people that killed your fathers, by people that are stealing from you, by people that don't want you to exist. They don't want you to excel. They don't want you to develop. They want you to remain in poverty. They don't want you to produce for yourself. When somebody becomes smart and tries to produce, they will steal him and take him to Europe. Or they will influence the puppet government to destroy that person. No, don't allow them to develop. Why should he build cars, build planes? Stop them. But over there in Europe, Once you have any major talents to develop, they will take you like an egg and prune you to make sure that you improve very, very well, because at the end of the day, every benefit will still go to the government. You will still need to pay tax. The bigger you are, the bigger the tax that you will pay, and all the tax goes to the government. The government becomes rich and run the country and the world as much as they can. So the borders were created by people that hate Africa, by people that hate you for the way you look. None of them love Africa. None of them love us. So these borders were created by these folks. And that is why anybody that is saying, oh, these borders must, it is just crazy. It is crazy when some of us are demanding that Biafra should be restored. And some people have problem with it. As in, they sincerely have problem with it. Why? Why do you have problem with it? Yet, you are talking about Africa's unity. You want Africa to develop. You want Africa to grow. But you have problem that somebody somewhere want to go back the way of the ancients, the structure of the ancients, the ancient structure. Biafra and Ambazonia are even supposed to merge as one country. Yoruba and this Benin, they are supposed to be one country. It's one culture, it's the same culture. If you look at the people, you can hardly differentiate them, except that one speaks French and one speaks English. But most of them understand Yoruba. So, these mindsets that have been created by colonialism must be put away. I'm not saying that I'm not after Africa's unity. No. You know, when you begin to talk this way, some Africans that are not properly enlightened, I will not say educated, because most of what we call education is actually European education, in which it is limited to what Europeans want you to know in this world. Okay? It is limited because all our universities, they destroyed all our universities, okay, and established their own. There are no universities that we have today that are in Africa today that are actually birthed from the ancient African universities. In Mali, there were universities, they destroyed, burnt all the books. In Egypt, there were universities, they destroyed, burnt all the books. So, in different places, there were universities. In fact, the oldest universities in the world can be traced to Africa. But what we have in Africa today are not universities of African origin. So when you say people are educated, it is limited to the knowledge that the European masters want us to have. And that is why there are just lots of work that Africans need to do. If we must restructure Africa and put Africa back to our former glory so that we can continue. Because what happened was that Europeans halted our progress and imposed their own systems that they can control, because they couldn't control us with our own systems because they do not understand our own systems. So they now impose their own systems on us and called it democracy and whatever. They imposed these systems because this is the system they understand, and these systems are alien to us. We do not understand. So they can control these systems while we are running rampage and running around like fools. So what we have as government, governance, all of these systems we teach people, there's a whole lot of work that we need to do. Systems of government and all of that, there's a whole lot of work we need to do. Whole lot of research. And most of this research cannot be carried out in bondage. Because most of these structures, they promote Western ideologies. That's what they promote. The Western systems, the Western ideologies. That's what they promote. Instead of to promote originality, African originality, no. It is anything that comes from the West is what is right. So there's a whole lot. So when I talk about education or people being educated, I'm talking about people that are not just educated or enlightened or that have gone to the universities or have degrees. No. But people that can read and write and have been able to make use of that skill of reading and writing to research beyond what they could have been taught in the universities or in higher learning or in higher institutions. Okay? Research to know the reality, the truth about you, about your people, about your history. So, most of our people are not properly educated, and that is why we have some of these platforms to make sure that we educate our people, to make sure that we tighten the loose knots that the Europeans removed and hid. We have gotten back all these knots and we are tightening them. We are tightening them, and that is the work that we are doing here. You see, some people might feel, oh, this thing that you're doing, you're just wasting your time and all of that. You could have been using your time to do something else. You're not being paid for it. Why are you doing it? I am doing this because I believe that if somebody has the advantage to be knowledgeable above many people within his sphere of contact, it is his responsibility to ensure that he spreads that knowledge so that at the end of the day, everybody will benefit. Because if Africa gets better, if Biafra is restored, and the whole of Africa is free, every one of us will be happy. Every one of us will be free. So what we are doing here is a duty. It's a duty to our people, and it's a duty to Africa and the world at large. Because if Africa is stable, the world will have more peace. There will be a lot of peace in the world. So some of these things, these borders, first and foremost, the borders within Africa must be loosed. That is the first task that Africans should campaign for. The borders should be loosed. Now, when I say that the borders should be loosed, I do not mean that anybody should just be free to just run into any country or into any nation, as the case may be. I'm not saying that the borders should just be open and people should be able to travel without examination, without being examined like the Fulanese carrying army into Biafra land. No. What I'm saying is people should be able to travel to places in Africa, at least with your passport. You have your passport, you go in, they check you and see that, okay, this one is not a criminal. He's not coming to commit crimes in our country, and they let you in. Not making things so difficult with visas and all. How can an African be traveling to another African country and they'll be stressing you with lots of visas? You just cannot go there. And what do you want to go and do? Business. When you go there, you do your business, you pay your tax, you improve the life of people there, you improve the economy there. But no, Europeans have created borders. They have created boundaries and borders so that Africans cannot correlate. I'm not talking about a one Africa where everything will just be porous for everybody. Everything will be so porous. No, because there are some people that are out of hand. We have had lots of experience in Biafra land with this Fulani and their expansionist attitude and all of that. Though I know if Biafra is restored today, there is no Fulani that will be able to come to our land to do any rubbish, because we are going to make sure that there will be no form of criminality, not to talk about terrorism, because we have lots of experience with that, because our security will be very strong. So anybody can come in, they can come in, but not to not to come and try anything. Before you even try it, we are going to know. Before you even try any form of all those useless criminality, you'll be caught. So, but what I'm saying is that there should be free trade, free movement. Africans should know themselves. Most people do not know, most Africans, most Europeans know things that are happening in Africa more than Africans know things that are happening in Africa. When we are talking about Biafra and what we're suffering in Biafra land and what the zoo government is doing to us, what the Europeans are doing to us through the zoo government, other Africans think that we're just problematic. We're not just united. We have problem. That we don't just want to understand ourselves. We don't just want to accommodate ourselves. That is the way some Africans see it. But they do not know that this is European imperialism. And they are using their control, their network, this system that they created for us to operate, to control us and control our people and control the minds of people. But I believe that Africans are actually beginning to understand now. They are coming to the realization that indeed, what is going on is a problem. Africans are coming to that realization. They are beginning to understand that we've been saying the truth all this while. And they are beginning to understand that we're not a problem. All we want is a breath of fresh air. All we want is to be free, economically and politically. We need to be free as a people. So Africa needs to be restructured. Once you have the mindset of maintaining the territories, oh, these territories must be maintained. Okay, if you so love the territories, why have you not merged nations? Why have you not merged nations? If you so love the territories, that's the white people created. Why don't nations merge? There are nations that have so much similarity. Why don't you put yourself together, let your force be stronger, and work things out for yourself? You get to understand yourself, you put yourself together, and make your strengths to be louder. Make your army stronger. Because when an army have more men, it's stronger before I begin to talk about weapons. Make your economy to be stronger. When there are many people involved in the economy doing businesses and paying tax, the economy will be stronger and will be able to build faster. That is why the zoo have an advantage because of number, even though the Europeans are not allowing people to understand themselves. We Biafrans, we have no quarrel with other people. All we need is our own freedom. We just need to be on our own so that we can develop. We have tried Nigeria for many years, for donkey years. We have tried every opportunity we've had. We have tried to improve Nigeria, to make Nigeria one. It cannot be one because it wasn't built by us. That is what we have discovered. It's not our creation. So it cannot be one. We cannot manage it. You cannot manage something you did not create, something you did not build, something that was created by your enemy and delivered to you. How can you manage something created by your enemy and delivered to you? It's a great gift. Some Africans believe that Nigeria should continue as one, but not knowing that Nigeria is a great gift. Some years back, I believe the Nigerians will be frowning at us as we are calling for the restoration of Biafra. But now they are feeling the heat of the West influencing Nigeria to do their bid. That is it. They are feeling the heat. They are feeling the heat. But there is actually no problem with people coming together, people working things out together. There's actually no problem with that. But it should be on the terms of the people. If the Biafran people today say that, oh, we want to remain in Nigeria, this is how we want, fine. But it should be the will of the people and on the terms and conditions of the people. We are not saying that we will get Biafra, it is by force. Of course, if Biafra is the will of the people and we want to use force to have it, it is our right to use force to have it. But our message is very simple. The will of the Biafran people must stand. When a people's will prevails, that is what shows that the people are free. It is not a few group of people deciding for the whole number of people. No. When the people say, this is what we want, in which our people have exercised over time, that indeed, we all want Biafra. Indeed, we all want freedom. We all want economic freedom. I heard recently the Indigenous National Congress, president of the Indigenous National Congress, Professor Kaba, he was speaking concerning the Niger Delta Ministry and all. He made a statement. One statement that he made that I caught. He said that the people want economic freedom. And that is it. That is it. Economic freedom. Our people want economic freedom. So, we want Biafra, we want to manage our wealth. We want to manage our wealth. That is why we want Biafra. That is why we want our freedom. We want to manage our wealth. We want to manage our destiny. We want to manage our people. We want to manage the kind of information our people receive so that our people will not be weak and frail and stupid. There is so much stupidity on the land because of the kind of informations that has been spread. So much stupidity because the West will make sure that they suppress the truth. Then that one that is a lie, that one that makes you stupid and weak, you will see massive growth. Some people were saying, "Oh, why are you on the radio? Why don't you rely on Facebook and just continue Facebook? Because there is somebody somehow linked to the radio that they hate. Why should I rely on Facebook when I want to pass information to the world? Why should I limit myself to just Facebook? I can use Facebook, of course, but why should I limit myself to only Facebook? So that Facebook can control my informations. As at last 2 years, some of my broadcasts on Facebook was making them to crack. When you play the videos, you not even hear the words that I'm saying. Meanwhile, on the radio, the words are clear. But on Facebook, you will not hear the words. They are cracking. Facebook have tampered on them. That's where you want me to rely on. When I'm taking pains to do research, to ensure I educate the world, you want me to rely on Facebook? You're not serious. Facebook that is under the control of my enemies. Biafra Radio is not under the control of our enemies. They cannot censor our message, so you can get it. You can get the message. They cannot suppress it. That is why we tell you, download Biafra Radio so that you can get your message directly. Not relying on their platforms. Of course, we'll make use of their platforms because there are some of our people there. That's for sure. We'll make use of their platforms, but we don't rely on it. We don't rely on it. We don't rely on Facebook. We don't rely on any of their platforms to pass our message. No. And that is why they do not like us. That is why the West do not like us. Because we always make sure, you know, what makes this movement to be very powerful is that the West do not have monopoly of information in relation to the quest for the restoration of Biafra. We have our own radio. We have where we can disseminate our own information. Probably they were thinking that whatever message we want to give, we must rely on them. No, we broke free from that. We're not relying on them. And they do not like it. So whatever you do on Facebook, they keep suppressing it. I don't care. I don't care how much they try to suppress my informations that I put on Facebook because I'm not limited to it. But if I was limited to it, it would be discouraging because when you want to teach lots of people, pass so much information, they'll be suppressing it. And some people used to mock me and say, "Oh, he he has very, very little number of followers on Facebook and on social media." It's not me. Whatever knowledge I have, I already know. Whatever information you do not have, you are being cheated on. It is not me that is disseminating the information that is being cheated. It is you. It is not me that will make stupid decisions that will destroy myself or destroy our people. It is you. But you will not know that you're making stupid decisions because you're not aware. You don't have the adequate knowledge to even know that the decisions you're making are stupid. Because there are some people that know that they are making wrong decisions, but because they have been paid, they have been settled. So they are working for their masters. Those ones are different. But there are innocent people that are making stupid decisions. They are innocent. They receive nothing. Rather, they are the ones still paying, giving their money. Innocent people. It is because of such people that we are talking. It is because of such people that we are disseminating this information to ensure that you do not remain stupid. So if the information doesn't get to you, you are being cheated on. If you're denied the information, you are being cheated on. Not me, because Elohim gave me the message and I came and I passed it to you. So the people that denied you the opportunity to hear it are the ones that denied you the adequate knowledge. Because when I want to get my informations, I go for it. I go for my informations. I listen to those that have it. And I keep it. So the trade relations among nations must continue. Sorry, these trade relations must begin, because there are no trade relations in Africa. African nations don't trade among themselves because they all think they are all poor. They need money. So they give natural resources to those that don't have it. And I know why. They don't trade among themselves because they don't produce. Because if you produce, maybe the zoo will have to buy uranium from Niger. If the zoo want to use uranium to produce different things that it should be used to produce for. Okay, so because they don't produce, they don't buy from themselves. Because they don't produce, they don't buy for themselves. So all these things must be restructured, because before now, Africa was not just a continent of raw material. Our people were producing for themselves. The weapons that were used to fight were being produced locally. The weapons that these kingdoms were using to fight, they were not buying them, they were producing them. Benin used to produce bronze weapons. They were producing all these their weapons. So why shouldn't we produce? I'm not saying that we should just be thinking of war and all of that, but definitely we should think of defense, not war, but defense. For instance, China is a world power today. In fact, the United States is so scared of China. And with the way China is going, China is likely to become the #1 power in the world. With this BRICS friendship and all breaking out from the Western hegemony and the dollar control, China is likely to become the #1 economic power in the world. So the United States, in all their strength, military might, and all, they are afraid of China. But China have never fought any war. They don't fight war. But the United States is afraid. Why? They have defense. If China didn't have defense, even before they invaded Libya, they would have invaded China. Why did they invade Libya? It is because of the fear of Libya becoming like China. Or even becoming more powerful than China, because what Gaddafi was trying to do is what BRICS is doing now. And Gaddafi was trying to do that. In fact, what Gaddafi was trying to do is more powerful than what BRICS is doing. Because BRICS, yes, they are gathering different nations from across the globe. Fine. But Gaddafi was trying to build an economy, a currency that will be backed up by the natural resources in Africa, backed up by gold, by petroleum, by uranium, by silver, all these natural resources. All the African countries, depending on the natural resources that they have, that currency would have been so strong. would have been a very strong economy. So America had to go and kill him. Carried his people to go and kill him. So ancient landmarks, ancient families should be able to come together. So Africa should be restructured, and Africa should be allowed to be restructured. And that is where Biafra comes in. That is where Biafra comes in, because Biafra is going back to originality. Our original natural borders. You know, when people ask, or no, let me not say borders, boundaries. When people ask our leader, what is the map of Biafra? Our leader did not behave. That's why I love that man so much, Mazi Kanu. He did not behave like the West, or like those that their minds are controlled by the West. Mazi Kanu said, wherever you see the women wear two-piece wrapper, that is Biafra. Anywhere you stop, when you begin to trace where you stop, where the women wear two-piece wrapper, then you have gotten to Biafra boundary. That is based on culture. Based on culture. Not somebody, the way the zoo creates states. They will just come, just draw lines on map. It has become boundary. What are the parameters for drawing these lines? Nobody is answering. Did you consult the people? Nobody is answering. The people are not consulted. They just come draw map and say that this is what it is. Our leader did not draw map. He said, anywhere you see the people wear two-piece wrapper, that is Biafra. And that is what we must return to. The whole of Africa must return to it. For the rest of Africa, it might take them a little time to digest this message that I'm giving. But for Biafrans, it is our reality, and that is why we're doing this. And that is why we can never stop doing it. And that is why we will never relent. And that is why we will never draw back nor drag feet. The territories of Biafra must be free to operate in the way that we've been operating before our forefathers' sovereignty was stolen. Before our sovereignty was stolen, our people must continue the way that we've always been. We are a proud people. We do not bow. And as we have started, we can never bow. We can never stop. We can never relent. We can never drag feet. We'll continue. We'll continue to preach this message. We'll continue to push forward and push hard until Biafra is restored. No matter what the enemy tries to do, no matter who the enemy kidnaps, no matter who the enemy kills, they can never stop us. They can never, ever stop us. This generation is committed to restoring Biafra. No matter the intimidation, they can never stop us. They thought by kidnapping Mazi Kanu and probably bribing one or two people, they are going to stop the restoration of Biafra, or they are going to stop the message for the restoration of Biafra. Have they? Have they succeeded? Have they been able to stop it? Of course they have not. Then they can never stop it. Because our eyes have opened to all the tricks of the European invaders to our land, the European invaders to our minds. Our eyes are open to all the tricks, and we are ready to dismantle every of these barriers and these walls that were put in our minds to keep us under subjection forever. You know, slavery is beyond chains in the hands. Slavery begins with chains. When they get hold of the person the first time, the person will not realize that he has been captured and is now a slave. The person will keep fighting, trying to fight off slavery. Then comes the beating. They will beat and beat and beat until the person becomes afraid to continue to fight. But those that refuse to fear, they can beat you to death. And in death you won. Because a slave is only defeated when he accepts slavery. When a slave is killed, when a man that is captured is killed, the man was killed. The man was never a slave. So, but when the man accepts and begin to consider this person that have been beating him as master and begin to obey the person out of fear, then that is when that person has become a slave. And that is why no matter your intimidation, it will not stop us. It will only inspire us to do more, because it makes us to understand clearly how much of a slave you want us to be, and how much you don't want us to ever be free. In fact, we are more afraid now about this slavery continuing to the generations and generations unborn than we are afraid of death or torture or whatever. You must understand, we are much more afraid of this slavery continuing. So if the rest of Africa are not ready to restructure their regions or their territories, for we in Biafra, we are ready to restructure our own portion of Africa. It doesn't matter whether the West likes it or not. It doesn't matter whether the controllers of the zoo likes it or not. What matters is that is what we want. That is what we are going to get. That is what we want. That is what we're going to get. We must restructure Africa in our own territory. So if others want to make peace beyond the borders created by the West and merge themselves and continue, that is fine. Africa's unity is good, but original territories must be respected. And we are not looking at an African territory or African unity whereby one person that is being controlled by what's it called? One person that is a puppet of the West will now be controlling the whole of Africa. Then it means that the whole of Africa has returned to even a deeper slavery, because that one will want to use all the power, all the military to oppress, and you have nowhere to run to, you have nowhere to go to. So everybody within their territory, you control yourself, then we can have organizations of friendship. Of course, definitely not the likes of ECOWAS and AU, because anybody that wants freedom will cut himself off from France, Britain, British-controlled ECOWAS and European-controlled AU, whereby they can come to Africa to come and kill one of us, and the whole of AU, all those that portray themselves as leaders, can try to go and talk to them, and they'll be shunned like children. They'll be told, get out of here. We must deal with this man. We must kill him. In your own territory, in your own continent, they shut you out. NATO shut out AU. Then what is the use of AU? What is the use of the African Union? It's of no use. Of no use to the people. The African Union is of no good use to the people. So it's not such an organization I'm talking about. If these are the only organizations, when we have our freedom in Biafra, we will not be part of any of them. Of course, now, it's not by force that a sovereign nation must be part of any organization. Even United Nations is not by force. So no organization is by force. If you're a sovereign nation, you're a sovereign nation, you can do your things the way you want to. It's not every nation in this world that is a member of the United Nations. Because even the United Nations is deeply corrupt and controlled by the West. Because if the United Nations were not deeply corrupt and controlled by the West, Mazi would not be where he is today. And at least the United Nations would have continued to make statements concerning the continued detention and humiliation and torture of Mazi Kanu. But of course, Britain is there as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. So they are using their influence to make sure that nothing of such happens. Using their influence. So that is what we are experiencing. That is what Africa is experiencing. And that is what we are experiencing in Biafra land. But Africa needs to be restructured. Africa needs to be Africa needs to return back to our ancient, pure and ancient ways. I'm not saying concerning religion and all of that. Religion is personal. Okay? Religion is personal. That one can be preached, but it's not something that should be by force and all of that. Religion should be personal. Fine. But politically, economically, technologically, everything, Africa needs to return, because most people in Africa have even forgotten how things were done before the white men came. Because most places in Africa have become so westernized. Once you do things according to your culture, or you even speak like people from your place, you speak the English language with the intonation of people from your place, some people mock you and they begin to see you as uncivilized because they do not understand what civilization is. Civilization is not language. Civilization is not language. Because you can speak the English language does not mean that you're civilized. Doesn't mean that you're civilized. The Egyptians that taught the Greeks civilization, did they speak English language? The Greeks that came to Egypt, to Ethiopia, and other places in Africa, and went back to Europe and developed the Greek civilization, did they speak English language? Or did they speak French? No, they didn't speak any of these languages. They spoke Greek. In fact, in the days of Greece, and even after the rule of Greece, when Rome was even ruling, when you speak the Greek language, it was considered like you are
the educated one. So it's not new. So why didn't the Europeans continue with the Greek language? They dropped it because it's not theirs. The other Europeans, they dropped it. So because you cannot speak the English language fluently, or you used to make some mistakes, or you have certain tribal intonations to your English language, does not make you uncivilized. Okay? Many people that can speak the English language fluently are very much uncivilized, and they are being used by the West. Many of these puppets in government houses all over Africa that are being used by the West, most of them can speak English language very, very well. They can speak English language. But I do not know whether they even know what they're doing or but I believe many of them know what they're doing. But they are doing it because of their greed and because of fear. Because they do not want what happened to Thomas Sankara to happen to them. They do not want what happened to Muammar Gaddafi to happen to them. So they continue. In the zoo called Nigeria, do you think it is Tinubu or Buhari? Is their power by their strength that they were able to, that Buhari was able to kidnap Mazi Nnamdi Kanu from Kenya and bring him to Nigeria? And Tinubu is continuing to keep him where he is. We think it's by their strength. It's because they are being supported. Because they are being supported. The lines are open. In case you want to call, you are free to call in. You are free to call in. You can call, but before that call, before you call in, let me first of all announce the number to call in. Then I'll mention certain names. Then I will tell you when to call in. The number to call in is +49 173 527 5073. That is on Signal. You can only call this number on Signal. Okay? You can call this number on Signal. +49 173 527 5073. This is the number to call on Signal alone. Okay? On Signal alone. So this number, you can call it on Signal. That's fine. So there are many of our people. There are many of our people that have been abducted. The zoo have adopted our people. They keep kidnapping people, going from place to place, kidnapping our people because of freedom of speech, because they are members of IPOB. Just for the fact that you're a member of IPOB, it makes you automatically a criminal in the zoo. That is how the zoo goes about kidnapping people. Meanwhile, IPOB is the people. Millions of people are members of IPOB. And even people that are not members of IPOB are being kidnapped on the excuse that they are members of IPOB. There are some of our people, they kidnap them, and nobody have an idea of where they are or what has happened to them. They whisk them away, come to their houses at night and kidnap them putting fear into their wives and their children. In some occasions, they can even take the wife as well. Take these people. What crimes have they committed? Nothing, but because they are calling for the restoration of Biafra. They have committed no crimes. But for the fact that you're calling for the restoration of Biafra, the zoo called Nigeria will mark you out for extinction. They've marked Biafrans for extinction. And that is what is going on. So once you stand out, you refuse to shift your grounds, they will mark you out for extinction. You refuse to shift grounds, they'll mark you out. So they keep going about kidnapping our people. They keep going about kidnapping our people to make sure that these people can no longer continue in this work that they are doing. I think sometime last year, one of our members, I think his name is Engineer Michael, he was kidnapped in Imo State. Kidnapped in Imo State. Engineer Michael. Till today, no news of him. They have not taken them to court. If you claim that these people are criminals, then take them to court. Let a lawyer stand by them. So why kidnap people and you refuse to take them to court? Take them to court. If you say that it is an arrest, then take them to court. Why are you afraid of taking them to court? Idara Gold that is free today, how long did it take them before they took her to court? Why? They have nothing against these people. Because according to the law, what we are doing, there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. What is wrong for people to call for referendum? Referendum that everybody is doing everywhere. When an African calls for referendum, it becomes war. Everywhere you go to, referendum, referendum. The same Britain that do not want Biafra land to have referendum. Organize referendum for Scotland. But for the Biafran people, it is war. You have kept Mazi there for more than 2 years now. And in the space of these 2 years, they have been going about all around kidnapping people. And they will not take them to courts. They will not take them for any hearing. Some of these people, as they pick them like that, it is straight to their death. To date, they've not taken Engineer Michael to court. Mazi Bright of Ebonyi State, they've not taken him to court, which happened recently. And many more that I don't have access to their names. And funny enough, this period, most people talk less about some of these activities that the zoo is carrying out on our land. Most people do not talk about them. They talk less of it. They go about kidnapping people. Today you're hearing from somebody, tomorrow you no longer hear from the person. and you don't know what is happening, they have disappeared the person. So these are the crimes that the British creation called Nigeria is doing to the people. Whenever you rise up and say no to the oppression and say no to the economic strangulation of your people and say no to the destruction of your land and the pollution of your air and water. Once you stand up and say, no, this is wrong. You see, the wrong that these European folks have done to our people in Africa, not just in Biafra land, but in Africa entirely. I do not think that books, the whole books in this world, will be enough to write all of them. The crimes. There are some things that have become like an everyday life. It has become like normal. Why? Because they use black people to do these things against black people. And when you complain, they will say, oh, it is within them, we don't want to interfere. For real, you don't want to interfere. You don't want to interfere because that man is your puppet and what he's doing favors you. But when the man begins to take certain steps that do not favor the West, they will want to interfere. Look at the elections in the zoo. They don't want to interfere. But when Goodluck Jonathan was there, because he had started taking certain steps against the West, Obama came to NTA, National Television of the zoo, and was talking directly to the Nigerian or the people that call themselves Nigeria. He was talking to them like as if he is the president of Nigeria directly, telling them to vote and all of that. Why should the president of the United States concern himself so much as to come to national TV, make a video to be played on national TV of another country, not even within his continent, and asking them to vote? The day I saw that thing on TV, I knew that something was playing out, which I did not understand. I knew something was playing out because I was aware how much these people were fighting Goodluck Jonathan, using Boko Haram to fight him. I'm not saying that Goodluck Jonathan is the best president or the best thing that should have happened. But of course, experience over time have shown everybody that he is better than all of them, even those before and those after him. Before Goodluck Jonathan, there was no freedom of speech in the zoo. There was no freedom of speech. But in the time of Goodluck Jonathan, there was freedom of speech, even freedom to insult him as much as you like. Feel free to insult him and behave the way you like. People started experiencing democracy. So these people used Boko Haram, because Boko Haram is their creation, increased the strength of Boko Haram. Why they were telling him that he cannot handle Boko Haram, but they were actually the ones fighting him. Boko Haram is the creation of the West. One of the major reasons they killed Gaddafi and left Libya porous is so that those people that they are planted in the Middle East to destabilize the Middle East, because they had to destabilize the Middle East because of the oil there. And they also wanted that connection to be connected down to the zoo because of the oil as well, so they can also destabilize the zoo and destabilize West Africa. The aim is actually the zoo. So, and this man was just there stopping them. Gaddafi was there at Libya stopping them, stopping these people from the Middle East to come down to Africa and to West Africa. So they took him out and left that country porous so that nobody would actually stand there to stop terrorism. So when, after doing that, when they were doing that, Goodluck Jonathan was there, or was it Goodluck Jonathan or which other president was there in the zoo? They were quiet. They didn't understand the game that was being played, that was being played out then. They did not speak on behalf of I think, yeah, it was Goodluck Jonathan that was president then. They didn't speak on behalf of Gaddafi. In fact, prior to that time, Gaddafi had already said that the zoo should be divided into two, for the north and the south, at least respecting religious boundaries, clear-cut religious boundaries, of course. We all know that in the south, in Yoruba land and some other places, there is Islam, of course, but it's not the way it is in the north. The ideology of Islam in the north is different from the way it is in the south. So it is easier for the Muslims in the south to relate with the Christians in the south and other people of other religions. But in the north, is considered like a taboo. So he made this suggestion and they fought him. They fought him. The Goodluck Jonathan administration fought him. That, oh, how can he say that? And all of that, how can he say that Nigeria should be divided? I believe if Muammar Gaddafi were still alive till today, what they are doing to Mazi Kanu, they wouldn't have been able to do it. If he was still alive and still ruling Libya till today, he would have supported Biafra. Because the man had no fear of anybody. All these people that call themselves African leaders, their problem is fear. They are all afraid. Gaddafi had no fear. And that was why he died bravely. He died like a man. Brave. He never bowed. Until tomorrow, Africa will never forget Gaddafi. Cursed be that African that forgets Gaddafi, or that generation that forgets Gaddafi. Because he died for Africa. He died for our freedom. He stood his ground. And just a few years after, the whole of Africa is beginning to realize what happened to Gaddafi. So they opened up. The lines are open. You can call. You can call now. The lines are open. So these people opened up Libya. So Libya now became the passageway for the terrorists that they have planted in the Middle East. Because you see these terrorists come out and curse America, pretend to be fighting America. Where are they destabilizing? Are they destabilizing America? Are the terrorists in America? Did America allow terrorism into America? Of course they didn't. Of course they didn't. They have to keep those people busy fighting. They have to keep those people busy. Busy fighting themselves and killing themselves so that they can continue to reap from them. Why is there no terrorism in Saudi Arabia? Because Saudi Arabia had always been the friend of the West until recently with BRICS. Saudi Arabia had always been the friend of the West. If Saudi Arabia had withdrawn their friendship without this support of China, Russia, and all these other countries coming together, if they had done it in the past, you would have seen hot terrorism in Saudi Arabia. You would have seen it. Boko Haram was brought to the zoo to control because they were afraid that our people were beginning to demand. The agitations were rising, demanding for true democracy, democracy that would truly be of the people. And they fear how smart Biafrans and her neighbors are. That if indeed everything is working out well in the zoo and we are able to settle no quarrels and all, the zoo might begin to lead certain fronts in Africa with a number and all. So they had to plan Boko Haram to keep the zoo busy. Of course, they always plant people in the government. So in the north there, they plant people in the government to keep feeding Boko Haram and keep defending Boko Haram. Keep defending Boko Haram. That's it. That is what they do. But as for Biafra land, if they like, let them continue. We are going to continue. They have all the power. They have all the forces. They have all the friends. They have all the influence. All the powerful organizations, or the most powerful organizations in the world, are under their beck and call. I'm not talking about the zoo now. I'm talking about Britain. Because for the restoration of Biafra, it is not the zoo. It is not the strength of the zoo that we are battling with. It is the strength of Britain. And that is why Elohim raised BRICS to destroy the West so that Biafra can be free. And in our lifetime, we are going to visualize how these people that used to carry themselves as the most powerful people in the world, they will become nothing. And there is absolutely nothing they can do about it. Because there is nothing they can do. They cannot start a nuclear war with Russia and China. They cannot. Everybody would die. Everybody in the whole world will go extinct. The whole world will go extinct. All the civilizations will be lost. There is nobody that wants to risk it. Forget their all the strength they try to wield. Nobody is ready to take such risk to start a nuclear war. With all these things they've built, is to go and end it in a nuclear war. They're not ready to end it in a nuclear war. And that was why they have been making sure that China and Russia never become friends. But to their greatest amazement, China and Russia finally became friends. Finally became friends. China and Russia now aligned when they abandoned Russia. China has been there. China has been there just waiting. Very smart people. Very, very smart. I respect the Chinese, I must say. Very smart nation. Very smart race. They don't fight. They're not aggressive. All they do is business. Invest in themselves, invest in their people. Invest in themselves, invest in their people, build themselves, build their people. Very smart folks. How they rose, nobody understood. They just keep rising, keep rising, keep rising. Everybody's afraid of China. Yet they have not done any evil to anybody, but they're afraid of them. Oh, they want to take over. They want to control. They're afraid of, but they have not done any evil. Only within their territory, they said, this territory is ours. You cannot penetrate it. You cannot come here and tell your lies and deceive our people and control their minds. The Western media keep putting things to make people hate China. I'm not saying that I love China. The only nation I love, the only country I love in this world is Biafra. I respect people, and of course, I love my African brothers. But Biafra first. That's my first love. Then next, my African brothers. Anybody that mean well for Africa is my friend. I'm not also saying, by this, I'm not also saying, oh, I approve of Chinese relationship with African nations. That one is dependent on the African nations and the agreements that they have with China. It has nothing to do with me. But I'm only saying that the Chinese are smart people, very, very smart people. They don't go about putting their armies in places and causing war and fighting people and killing people in their own lands and taking over their resources and oppressing them. The Chinese don't do all that. In the places in Africa where the Chinese are even taking over their businesses, it is those Africans it is the foolishness of the African leaders. Nobody is deceiving anybody. Let us stop all this. It is the foolishness of the African leaders. That's why they cannot complain. China will tell you, okay, I will do this for you, and this and all. If you cannot pay back, okay, I'll borrow you this money, or I am going to build so and so thing. You're supposed to pay me back in so time. This is normal discipline. You should be disciplined when doing business. Many Africans are not disciplined. And all they just want is to be stealing money. Because the Europeans have corrupted them and have spoiled them. They're not answerable to their people. So at the end of the day, you are not able to pay. So what do you expect the Chinese to do? Is it not something you signed to? They didn't deceive you. You signed to it. You understood the terms and conditions. So if you later develop yourself and develop your country and you're able to pay them back, then they will leave. But I do not know their business transactions or agreements. I cannot speak on that. But what I'm saying is that the Chinese are smart. They have just been there. They are not fighting anybody. And all, they've just been there. But Russia have just been there as well. Russia didn't have any need to begin to go against the West. They were okay, they were comfortable the way they were. But the West, the expansionist mindset of the West was becoming too much. And breaking of agreements, that's what they do. That is what they do. They'll come into agreement with you and they will break it. Come into agreement with you and they will break it. Oh, you break your structures. I will break mine. You break yours, they don't break theirs. And they keep expanding to your territory. So Russia is just trying to save her head. And Russia knows that she alone cannot fight the West. It's not one country. It's not just the United States, the whole of Europe, and all of them are strong. There's no European country that is weak. Of course, some are stronger than others, but there is no one that is weak. We should not deceive ourselves. No one is weak, and all of them are together, putting all their strength together against only one Russia. Russia had to shift and begin to make friends all over the world. So when you see Russia coming to Africa, they are trying to save their heads. They want to make friends. because the people that want to put them under, they want to make Russia to become a third world country. Russia is fighting because by the time they are able to spread and they now start threatening Russia and start influencing the decisions that the leaders or the president of Russia makes, or the leaders of Russia begin to make. Before you know it, the one that is strong, they will influence and assassinate him and put a puppet in Russia. Before you know it, Russia will become a third world country. So the Russian Federation is fighting against that, trying to save her head. So started going all over the world trying to look for friends. That is what you see in BRICS. And that is why you see Russia coming to Africa, trying to strengthen African countries, because a slave cannot help himself. He needs freedom first. A slave cannot help you. He cannot help himself. He cannot help you. African nations are slaves. So Russia is offering help so that these nations, if they have sense, they can stand on their own and become friends with Russia, just the way America have friends in Europe and other places in the world. So Russia is looking for friends to save her head. I don't think Russia is looking for colonies because she has problem. People that are looking for colonies are people that are comfortable. Russia is looking for friends. You can tell me maybe China is looking for colonies. Well, that one is debatable. But for Russia, I know Russia is looking for friends. So Russia went to China. Let us be friends. They have sanctioned me. I need others. And China said, I didn't sanction you. I need money. I'm a businessman. And the friendship continued. And what you saw in South Africa, the BRICS summit, is as a result of this friendship that Russia is trying to have all over the world. And this friendship will be the end of the European powers. This friendship is the end of the European powers. And we come to the end of today's program. Thank you very, very much for listening. My name is Kimiowei TARI NEMI, and this is Voice of the Coast on Biafra Radio. Thank you very much. God bless you.